Good evening, everyone, and welcome to What's Happening. I'm Elliot Margolis. I'm here with my co-host, George Binns, and our guest today is Jerry Guilebbe. I think everybody in the city knows Jerry, a leader in Veterans Affairs and just a darn good citizen of the city. And we want to talk a little bit about the veterans, a little bit about Jerry's take on the city. But Jerry, the first question that I have for you would be the reaction that you and the veterans had when the mayor took down the POW flag and put up a Black Lives Matter flag.
Well, I guess the first thing I saw, I think it was early in the morning when I was going up to have coffee, and I just happened to take a look over at City Hall, and I noticed that the American flag and the POW flag were missing. So I saw the Black Lives Matter flag up there, and I was like, whoa, this is a city building, that the flag just doesn't belong there like that. So I made a phone call, and I was pretty upset about it, and I got numerous calls from many veterans. So I was able to discuss this with the mayor, and Mike Collins went over and took the flag down and everything, and I then explained to them, the protocol for flags. And I said, whether it be a federal building or a state building or a city building, the American flag is on the left as you look at City Hall, POW is underneath, and to the right, typically in most cities and towns, it's a state flag. And I said, if you want to put other banners, flags, whatever you want to call them, they should be put somewhere else. I had suggested years ago about putting another flagpole in that park area, not where the memorials are, but maybe in the corner, where it would be nice to be able to have a Thanksgiving flag or whatever holiday, 4th of July, and it would look really nice over there. And I just didn't feel that was really appropriate I have never ever in my life seen an American flag taken down like that and be replaced by something other than an American flag. Even during war, you don't even do that. So that was my take on that, and it didn't go over too well.
What made them do it? What did the mayor say the reason why it was done?
Well, I got the impression that when I spoke to him, I think he was a little bit taken back by it, and I wouldn't say that he did it, to be mean or anything. I don't think his thought process was, gee, I'm doing something wrong. I think he was trying to, make it look like they support the Black Lives Matter movement, and it would be a great idea to have it there. Yeah, of course it's a good idea to put it someplace, but not in the front of City Hall where the American flag used to be. I'm sure if they had taken this, put it under the state flag, probably most people could have cared less,
And George, what do you have?
Well, basically, it got interesting. They had a committee meeting of the Beverly Human Rights Group, and the question of flying the Black Lives Matter flag came up. And that group had several advocates who said, well, the Black Lives Matter flag should be flying all the time. And the mayor got sort of backed into a corner that he didn't want to say we're going to put it up all the time. We're going to maybe share it time on a flagpole with them. And I think what he's coming around to the recognition that Black Lives Matter has got a lot of history and a lot of baggage that goes with it. So to casually fly that on a pole and say, hey, we're supporting some sort of movement to eliminate unnecessary injury. Well, that's too simple. And I think what they're failing to recognize is there's a lot more in this game than the simple thing of just throwing a flag up the pole and saying, oh, that's nice, we're supporting them. The game is more complicated, and I think it's catching up with the city.
Okay. What do you have for a question for Jerry?
Well, basically, I guess this is sort of a continuation of our series of um, the state of the city. And one of the issues that keeps coming up is what's the character of Beverly? So, Jerry, you've been here a while. What do you think the character of Beverly is right now or has been in your experience?
Well, obviously, I've been living here in the city of Beverly for 72 years. I've seen a lot of changes as well as we all have here, and I'm not against change. I think change is great in some cases, but it just seems to me that, with all of the new construction that went on in the city of Beverly, very, very little is taken into the character of the city. I mean, an example is, the project down by the railroad station. I mean, that was the entryway into the city, back in World War II. You had the train station, you have Odell Park down there, you have a beautiful area. That should have been kept more of a historical type of district. I even had said something to the city council at one time. I said, you really should take a drive up to Newburyport and see what they did to their downtown. They modernized it, they kept it old. They kept the old buildings up, they put some new condos in, but it still fits into the character of the city. And I just think we're losing a lot of the character of the city. They did a wonderful job on the GAR Hall. I mean, I was impressed with how well that came out and how it kept to how it looked back in, prior to 1800, after 1800 or so, whatever it was. So I think we're missing out. I think our big, like the Cummings properties and Beverly Crossing, they just seem to do what they want to do and just build these high rises all over the city. And I just don't like the look of it. So.
Well, where do you think the city ought to be going then?
Well, I'm not saying it should be not totally used, but I have to kind of bite my words a little, because when I first heard about all the changes made to Rantoul Street, when you do go down there and take a look now, it's actually in some places not too bad. It looks pretty nice, down by El Fuegos and down by the post office. It's starting to look nice, but I'm just afraid now with this Depot 2 project, they're going to turn this into a high-rise, downtown Somerville or Cambridge project. And I just don't think that fits the character of the city. Cabot Street's another thing. My God, we've been waiting, on 3 years now to get a road hot-topped? But yet we can build a building in 6 months. And that's what really bothers me, is projects being started and never completed.
Well, I remember talking to Mayor Scanlon many moons ago about that, because, like the McDonald's property,
Well,
which is a disaster. And I don't know if you know, my idea for that plan, for that area, is to build a replica of the ship Hannah.
absolutely, yep.
But the mayor at that point said to me, well, you got to go through all these different meetings and different proposals, and going through the state. You've got different laws that you have to deal with. So it takes a long time. I mean, what did it take? Somewhere around 45 years to build the Beverly-Salem Bridge.
Yeah, that wasn't until after it burnt down.
Yeah.
Or else it'd still be there.
So politics seems to get in the way of what's going on, not only in Washington, but in the city of Beverly.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's the problem. Down by the McDonald's property with the big red building, there was a proposal for that was really nice. It was a retail proposal with like a little strip area with a bunch of little stores, and Ward 2 Civic Association said, no, that's not Beverly. So the real estate guy that was handling that project was asked by his customer, what can I put up there that I don't need special permits for. And it was
Yep.
that building. And
Right.
see, sometimes people get in the way of their own progress.
Yeah,
So
that's
we've got a
correct.
big ugly building there instead
Yep.
of a nice touristy type of a place with more businesses, which would have brought in more tax money.
Yep, absolutely, yeah.
But sometimes we're our own worst enemy because you have to progress. You can't stay the same. But what is Beverly? You know,
Yeah.
Beverly is supposed to be the birthplace of the American Navy, but would you
Right.
know it?
No, no, no. And I know on the veteran side, we've tried so hard to, get all of our groups to stay together. We've got a brand new Veterans Council we started about, let's say about a year and a half, 2 years ago now. And, it seems to be going along well. I just wish we had a little bit more, what's the word I want to use? A little bit more of an authoritative figure that we could do things. It seems like even though we're an advisory board, we have to go through so many different channels to get things to be done. And but it's better than it was in the past. We're still trying to finish the Vietnam Memorial at Ellis Square. We've been, getting a new sign put in and a new strip walkway put in there. And that's the last phase of that project. And it's been a struggle trying to get this done. And but we're going to stay at it. That's all. There's so few of us really around now. Most of us are in our 70s, so that's an issue.
I think that's one of the other things that concerns me is they started on this project in Ellis Square, and little by little things are happening. But where they're going to quit without putting any sort of shade on it. If you want to sit out in Ellis Square in the summertime, there's very little breeze coming through that area,
Yeah.
and you're going to sit and bake.
Yeah.
So how do you make this area comfortable, accommodating for people to just sit and chat, which would
Yeah.
be a nice thing to do in the center of the city? You walk around the corner to Atomic Cafe or one of the other places, get yourself a cup of coffee and go sit and chat with your friends in the fresh air, as long as you're not baking. And what happens when it rains? There's no cover. So it's one of these things that it looks like it was going to be a great idea, but it just fell a little short at the last end.
Well, the other thing, George, is that, only a portion of that particular park is the Veterans Park. That's in that little section up front where the two flagpoles are and the statue. The rest of that is, was all done by Main Streets, and it's nothing but concrete. Up where we are, we've got some nice shrubbery. We've got a couple of trees there. One tree I don't particularly care for. We keep fighting about getting rid of it, but they don't want to get rid of it. So, it's going to be a battle forever and ever. Because when you literally walk by Cabot Street onto Essex, you can't see the statue at all there because that tree blocks it. They claim that's not a big deal, but that's for another discussion. But there could be a few more trees put in there to give it some more shade, especially out in the bigger part of the park.
Well, there again, you're raising a very important issue. The veterans have a small area that they are most concerned about it. Main Street has got another area.
Yeah.
Why can't those two groups talk together and say, hey?
We were. Yeah. We were at one time, and then, for whatever reason, just to go back a bit, when the project first started, probably 2 to 3 years ago, we were never even included in it. The CPA request went in. They went through Main Streets, went through all the different large corporations in town and got some money. And when the budget got put, I believe it was forget the number it was put, but we ended up with like 1.3% of the money. We got $4,000 for the park. The rest of that money either came, thank God, from our veterans groups and from the city and State Rep Jerry Paracella, who really, really went to bat for us and got some grant money. Denise DeChamps also did a fantastic job, to help us pull some financing together. And again, with Mike Collins and some of the city people, helped us put that little section together. But we weren't included in the original design of that park.
And just for the edification of the people, what's a CPA?
What's that? Yeah.
What's the CPA that you put in?
We didn't, they did. Main Street did.
What is it?
The money.
Translate it.
Well, community, that money that we pay into the city taxes.
Oh, that's what it was? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Community Preservation Act.
Community
Yeah.
Preservation,
Yeah.
and
Preservation Act, yeah.
because the city can't handle their own budget, they have to steal more money from everybody by creating a new tax.
Yeah, well, that's another nut. That's another issue, budgets. I was doing some research on budgets, and not that I'm any kind of guru, but just some basic numbers which really came up the other day, and I looked and I said, in 2015, I believe we had something like a $110 million city budget. And here we are in 2020, which is only like 5 years ago. I think it's now, $134 million. $24 million increase in our city budget. And the school department has gone from $49 million to $57 million. $8 million they've gotten in 5 years. And they seem to have, nothing against the teachers, because I think the teachers do a yeoman's job. But I'll tell you, as far as the school committee, they have an open checkbook to do with what they want. They just don't know how to do a budget, I don't think.
Well, a couple things. I've asked everybody on the school committee to come on the show and they've refused.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that tells you something right there.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm sure the state's the same way, but the state and the city are the same way. If we ever ran a household, we'd all be broke. But they spend the money first and then figure out how much they need to tax to cover the bills.
well,
And it should be the other way around.
I mean, I've been to some of those meetings and they say, well, it's only like a cup of coffee a day, but coffee now is $2.
$2,
So
that's right.
that's $14 a week,
Yeah.
and they think it's not a big deal, but people on fixed incomes, that is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that really, really upset me was I watched every city council meeting before the budgets, and I listened to them all. I listened to what their proposals were, what their projections were, and the night they went to vote on the budget, they're going around and asking questions, and out of all the councilors, Stacey Ames was the only one that made a proposal to make some changes to the budget. Well, they jumped on her like a bunch of barracuda on fish. She couldn't get 2 words in edgewise. They didn't want to hear about it. They didn't even want to discuss some of her changes to cut back on some of the money being spent. And then when it came time to vote, it was 9-0 on every single line item with no discussions. And to me, that was just not the way to do it.
Well, that brings up another issue that right now there's a charter commission being formed, and they were supposed to do some work, but because of COVID, everything's in abeyance. But several years ago, under Scanlon's administration, changed the character of the city administration from being a reasonably strong city council and reasonably strong mayor to a strong mayor, weak city council. So to a large extent, the city council doesn't have too many teeth in their charter. And one of the things that should be considered is, should we shift back to a stronger city council? Or the other option is, should we consider hiring a city manager
Yeah.
who reports to? Because a city manager is sort of like a strong mayor, except the city council can hire and fire him whenever they want.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I do, because that's what I seem to think. As I had gone before the city council a couple of times to speak about budgets and spending, and it seems like, you know, I'm not getting too far. You know, you bring up a proposal, you bring up something, and it's like, yeah, okay. And in fact, even during the budget hearing, I had sent an email off to every single counselor, you know, saying I've watched all your meetings, and I says there was Plan A, and somebody come up with a Plan B, and even I believe one of the counselors come up with Plan C, which was kind of out there. Which I said, hey, that's great, you know, someone's thinking outside the box. And when I had sent all of this email off to each one of them, I only got a response back from two city councilors. And the others I'd sent probably 5 or 6 different emails to, and I never, ever get a response back. So they're not even interested in wanting to hear anything.
Well, that raises the question, are they really representing the people that are voting for them?
Yeah.
And I think this is part of the reason I think there needs to be a little bit of rattling of the cage.
Yeah.
And change some things, because I've gone before the city council on several occasions and talked, and they sit there and they're sitting there and nobody asks any questions. Nobody makes any comments.
No.
Thank you very kindly. And next.
Yeah.
Well, I know, like in terms of the new charter commission, if we have one, I know I've applied to be on it. Chances of me getting on it are probably 0 to none. But
yeah, you and me both.
Yeah,
me too. I already asked too.
Well, but the thing is, one of the things that, in my view, needs to happen, even in the city, is term limits.
Right.
Now, we had, a number of years ago, we had Paul Guanci on, talked about term limits. He was in favor of term limits, but he says he loves his job, so he's going to keep running.
Yeah.
So that's not leadership.
That's right. Yeah.
That's not leadership.
Yeah.
If we had term limits, maybe, and whether it's the city or the state and federal, maybe people would do what's right instead of what's going to help them get reelected.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not that I want to single out anybody, but, you know, we all want to hear the answer we'd like to hear, but sometimes you're not going to get it. But every single time I've made a call or stopped in to see Todd Rotundo, I get an answer. I may not like every one of them, but I get an answer and I know where he stands or I stand. And who knows, maybe there'll be some compromise along the way there. And I think that's what's going to happen. It's more of a dialogue type of thing, you know, rather than this is the way we're going to do it and the hell with you, you know.
That's the way I found it at the city council meetings, if you want to know the truth, is like, they, first of all, they give you a time limit on how long you can talk, but they don't care. It's their way or the highway. They don't listen. Yeah.
I mean, another example is, you know, Cabot Street. I sent emails off to every single city councilor, not once, not twice, 3 times, about just what's going on with Cabot Street. And finally, after about a month and a half, I went down and saw Todd. Todd goes, Jerry, here's the scoop. I went, why can't somebody else say that? It makes perfectly good sense what you're telling me now. That, yeah, we're coming up, we got COVID going now, we're coming up on the end of the year. Businesses are trying to, you know, open up their restaurants on the sidewalks and the streets, and they want to leave things alone since it's so late in the year. I said, you know, I can live with that. Let's make sure I get that in the spring. You know, but I never got told that before, you know.
Well, you're raising the issue of transparency. Things should be happening and somebody should be talking about it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Salem News hardly ever covers anything that's going on at City Hall.
No,
And where else do you find out about it? You go to the City Hall website, and that's a morass trying to weave your
Oh,
way
yeah.
through it. And when you
Yep.
get to where you want to go, there's no answers there anyway.
Yep.
I tried looking up some of the minutes of the meetings, and the most recent one they got is something like July.
Yeah.
Hey, this is now November. What
Yeah.
about the meetings since then?
Yep.
And I think the other half of it got into discussion about having a transparent government, and the problem with it is if it's too transparent, we can see right through them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I know.
I've been to some committee meetings where I've heard councilors say, let's bring that up after the election. It's too controversial.
Yeah.
So they make us wait because they don't want to be on the wrong side of an issue. I mean,
That's right.
that is not doing their job either.
No, that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yep.
Well, one of the other issues I think that the city is facing right now is there's an awful lot of pressure from Boston and the state government to emphasize TOD, transportation-oriented development. And everybody says, hey, it's great. Beverly's got 5 train stations. Does that mean we have high-rise around every train station?
Yeah.
For about a mile? And I did this one time. I just put the map down and I drew a 1 mile circle around every train station. It'll look like the map for the Olympics. They all start to overlap.
Yeah.
And back to the issue of, is that really the character of the city, or is that really
No.
the direction we want the city to go? And we have an opinion. And does anybody make any changes according to these opinions?
No.
And there is a thing going around now at Plan Beverly. And I've been to a couple of meetings, and it seems like it's, oh yeah, we want to have a lot of high-rise apartments. And as Elliot has pointed out several times, yeah, it's nice to have high-rise apartments. You move a couple in there, and then they have kids.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you find out the taxes they're paying on that high-rise don't cover a year's education for one kid, let alone 2 or 3. So again, I'm worried about where we're going with the planning.
I don't think
Well, I
there
mean-
really is planning. I think there's just money involved in it. And, you know, the
Yeah.
other thing with Rantoul Street, having those high-rise buildings creates a wind tunnel.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've walked down Rantoul
Right.
Street lately, but
Yeah.
boy, I'll tell you, that wind
Yeah.
can get pretty tough at times. And when it's
Yeah.
cold out, it's
It goes
cold.
right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
If you want to go to and try to cut through between St. Mary's Church
Yeah.
and the rectory,
Yeah.
you better be leaning into the window. You're going to go for a ride.
Yeah.
But anyway,
George, we're getting close to the time. So if you got one
All right.
more question, and that'll be it.
well, Jerry, where would you like the city to go?
Well, again, I think I said that to the city council a couple of years ago. I said, you know, we need to just slow down a bit, you know, take a deep breath. I says, you know, like as an example here, city budget has gone up $25 million in 5 years. We've spent an extra $8 million in schools. And that's not even counting the buildings. I mean, that's just the overall general account. I says, we can't keep doing this. You know, we just can't keep taxing the people to death here. You know, someone's got to get out there and say, no, we're not going to have another tax increase. And we got COVID coming up again. You know, I'm sure the budget went up last year. I can't wait for 2021. I believe we have JRM's trash recycling contract coming up. You know, that's going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
You know, we still got the police station to pay. We're still paying off the high school, Memorial Middle School. God knows what else. You know, we just can't sustain this any longer. People aren't
It's the
working.
taxpayers' money. It's not the politicians' money.
No, and it's,
George, we got to wrap it up.
Okay, very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Jerry, thank you for
thanks.
sharing your thoughts. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
And
George.
this is part of a series we're running of what's the state of the city? Where do you think it ought to go? And we've had several of the city councilors on, 5 of them so far. We got a promise from 2 more to be on. And there's 2 more that have the same problem Jerry's got. They didn't answer my request. But at the same time, we want to hear from the citizens. And we've had 2 of these shows with the ordinary people that pay the taxes around town. So if you out there in television land think, hey, I got some thoughts on what the city ought to be, at the end of the show, at the credits, you'll see email addresses for Elliot, Gail, and me. Send us a note and tell us you want to be on the show. We'll make it happen. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.